Welcome everybody. Happy 2026. May it, may it be better than 2025. Um, starting with the agenda question.
The agenda was posted and I double checked that in time and it's all according to open meeting law.
Terrific. Um, would you read the preamble or public comment?
Do we need to take a roll call first and double check?
Ready? We can take a roll.
Sure.
I apologize.
Julie Weissman Steinbach,
Here.
Sabra McWhorter Clark, I know I just saw her join. I'll come back to Sabra.
Hi, I'm here.
Oh,
Thank you.
Margaret Marcucci,
I'm here.
Linda Voivoda,
Here.
Dee Dee Bormaster. She may be running late. Lisa Bonney,
Here.
thank you. Sheena Childers,
Present.
Randall Owen.
I'm here.
Okay. Lori Lutu.
Here.
Okay, great. We do have quorum, Julie.
Now, you read the preamble.
Sure. The preface to public comment is no action may be taken upon a matter raised under public comment period unless the matter itself has been specifically included on an agenda as an action item. To provide public comment telephonically, dial 1-253-215-8782. When prompted to provide the meeting ID, enter 929-904-1434 and passcode 707401. Comments will be allowed at the beginning and end of each day and will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Persons making comments will be asked to begin by stating their name for the record and to spell their last name and provide the secretary with written comments.
Does anyone have any public comment? You see the hand.
I do not.
Okay. Then let's move on. Did everyone review the minutes from our November meeting? And can I get a motion?
This is Margaret Marcucci for the record. I make a motion that we accept the minutes from our November meeting.
Thank you. Do I get a second? Here a second. We need a second.
This is Randall Owen. I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. Great. Okay.
Did you holler for me?
Yeah. No. No. Is there anyone here who would like to introduce themselves who might be interested in kids? Can you mute? Can you mute? Sorry.
Hi, this is Ace Patrick and Julie. I am interested in rejoining the council after having been gone for a year.
Yay! I think we would consider it. Great. Ace has been a fierce advocate, and Ace has done amazing work.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate that.
Great. Well, you could be in touch with Dawn.
This is Dawn Lyons. Ace and I are in touch. Thanks.
Yeah,
Yay.
And I'm very excited to
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
have that interaction with you again on our council, Ace.
thank you, Dawn. I appreciate you reaching back out to me after my absence for a year. So thanks. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
This is it.
Yeah. There's somebody with background noise. Can you please mute yourself? Thank you. Is anyone else interested in joining us?
Hi, this is Mark Tatter. I'm also planning on joining or attempting to join, and we'll be filling out the application for submission to the governor as well.
Very, very cool. And again, please reach out to Dawn. But we're excited about both your applications. And anyone else?
This is Dawn Lyons. I would like to announce that Randall Owen is now officially a SILC member.
Yes.
We received his governor appointment. So congratulations, Randall, and thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. I'm Dawn. Could you ask people to mute?
Could I ask people to what? I'm sorry.
Mute themselves.
Oh, I believe that might be Linda Voivoda. Linda, are you able to mute your microphone for a little bit?
We want you to mute your microphone.
Okay, just a second. Sorry.
No worries.
Oh my gosh. I'm having some difficulties. I apologize.
If you can't,
I can, yeah, I can do it. Oh, there she goes. Okay, she's got it.
Okay, thank you. Next, next, next is a discussion about updates. A discussion about updates to the SILC policy and procedure. And I'd like to turn this over to Dawn.
Hi, this is Dawn Lyons. I actually posted it as a material. I don't know if all of you have had a chance to go over it. If anyone would like me to go through the sections that I highlighted, just to help you if you could not locate that, I can do that. Just let me know. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the additions to the policy and procedure manual.
When anyone like Dawn to go through it.
This is Margaret Marcucci. Dawn said something, I actually got to read it and go through it, and I liked it.
This is Dawn Lyons. Thanks, Margaret. As I stated in the agenda item description, it's really mostly just updating it to reflect our 501c3 status and to add a little bit of a fiscal policy just to protect ourselves until we get something of our own in place, like our own bank account and a little bit more autonomy from the state. But it'll help us transfer, or at least transition into that role a little bit better, I think, anyway, hopefully. But if anyone has any questions about any sections, I'm happy to answer.
Or if anyone would like to make a motion to approve the change, that would be great too.
So I believe we have 5 voting members present. If one of them would like to make a motion to approve the new policy and procedure manual.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go, Linda.
I approve the new procedures and yes, I approve it.
And I'll second it.
Any discussion?
All in favor? So
Aye.
I
Aye. Any against? Motion passes. The next, so we're gonna move
I'm
on.
sorry, Julie. Did you address me? I'm so sorry.
No. We're gonna move on to number 7. The review, discussion, and vote on utilizing the Making My Mark Independent Living 101 handler as a guide for the election council. I'm going to turn this also back to Dawn.
Thanks, Julie. This is Dawn Lyons again. Excuse me. I actually found this manual while I was searching for a training for somebody on their individual training plan. And it just happened to pop up when I was looking at for the youth importance of having youth in the IL movement. And this manual is a very extensive and very intensive, I should say, I guess, manual that I thought how perfect is it for the Youth Action Council to utilize as a training tool, not only for their council in regards to the first sections of that manual, but also as you move into that manual farther, it has exercises and games and activities that can be done as trainings out in public for the youth outreach specialist or to other youth from the Youth Action Council as well. And, depending on what audience they have and what the age group is, there is some that's a little bit more for either a younger age group or maybe not an older age group. But there is also a lot of information in there that's age appropriate for even adults. And even we could learn something by reading through it again, I think. There's a lot of really vital information about independent living. And as I read through it, I noticed that it was created by all the experts in the field. Everybody who is important in IL contributed. ACL, it was Nickel, it was April, I should not use acronyms, I suppose. So National Council on Independent Living and the Association of Partners for Rural Independent Living, Programs for Rural Independent Living, sorry. They and a bunch of others. I mean, there was all kinds of disability organizations that were involved in the making of this manual. And, if it weren't directed towards youth specifically, I would even recommend it as a training tool for the SILC. But I think it's a really good guide for them to utilize. It's not something that I think they would have to go through in a certain amount of time necessarily, but if they applied one section per meeting that they have as a training, as just a general training, or even if they utilize those activities as they go out and do outreach, I mean, I think it's a wonderful tool, and I would hope that the SILC would agree. So I would entertain a motion to allow the Youth Action Council to utilize the Making My Mark Independent Living 101 handbook as a guide.
This is Randall Owen. So I'm familiar with the guide. I like it, but I only know it like from a professional standpoint. Have you shown it at all to any of the youth that are involved and see what they think and if they feel that it would be helpful?
Before we get into discussion, could we get a motion? And then we can, that's a really good question.
Julie, this is Dawn Lyons. I think what Randall's asking is that we get the youth input before we decide for them.
Is that what you,
Although I agree with that standpoint, I'm not saying we mandate it for them, right? I'm just saying this is a great tool that they could use and we could implement as part of their training officially so that they can have access to it and they can utilize it if they want to. Does that make sense? Or does that sound better?
I think that makes sense. I think my point was that I don't want to mandate to them what they have to do. Like, but if we're giving them tools that they might find helpful, I think that's completely appropriate.
hey, thank you for your feedback. I didn't even think of that question. You're absolutely right.
So this is Dawn Lyons. I also wanted to say, other than the Youth Action Council being able to select out of that handbook what they would like to use out of it, I would like a motion to the effect that the youth outreach specialist can and should use the actions or the activities within this guide when they go out to train youth on independent living. I think that's something that the SILC should be deciding on as far as what the youth outreach specialists should be doing for the Nevada TRIP program. That's something that we haven't had any additional training yet from the TRIP outreach specialists from the Department of Education. But once we do, we can integrate the independent living training from this manual into those trainings, I think. And I think that would be a good idea for her to make sure that she's incorporating independent living in that way, just because there's nothing really official other than this that she could use in that regard. But that's the only thing that I was thinking. That's the only reason I was thinking we really needed to take a vote on it, because otherwise we could just say, here's this great manual. Why don't you, consider using it? But as far as the youth outreach specialist being doing the outreach for the Nevada TRIP program, I think it's a great tool and resource for her to be able to help incorporate into those outreach events. Linda?
I totally agree with you on that, Dawn. This is Linda Voivoda for the record. I totally agree with that, because if you just come into something, I know if I would have just came into SILC the way I did, the way I thought I was supposed to without any training at all, I think I would have been a little bit lost and not knowing. And this way, our youth program director and all of the staffing that she's going to be having, and the help and the volunteers, they should actually know what is the criteria, what is supposed to be met, what is supposed to be considered independent living. As I try to enforce with clients that I have, is your independence is your thoughts, your notions, your ideas. I have no say in that. I can suggest, but I'm not going to guide you into doing something that maybe later on affect you in a different way. So yeah, if I mean, I am in total agreement, because you have to have a guideline somewhere. And with all of our knowledge that we have as adults and as independent living people, we with disabilities, we need to be able to know how to guide people along with our youth. And I believe the director that is involved should know that and be able to train that with the people that are coming in. So I agree.
So I guess maybe I should clarify the motion that I'm looking for then is a motion to approve the Making My Mark Independent Living 101 handbook as a guide for the Youth Action Council and the Youth Action or Youth Outreach Specialist for the Youth Action Council. Would anyone like to make that motion?
This is Randall. I'll make that motion. I don't want to repeat it because I'll forget all what you said, but
any second.
I motion for that to go through.
So Linda, you second?
Yes. Yes. I second that emotion. I just realized what I said.
No, I just thought of it. The song just went through my head.
I second that motion. Thank you.
Hey, this is Margaret Marcucci for the record. So you guys know, I did a senior program. I ran a senior program, and there's actually one for senior citizens like this. It's great. It's got so many neat things. I looked at the kids, and it's packed with stuff. And the ladies at Elko County School District office, the special ed, we looked at it, and she's interested in having them come and actually do some of the activities with them. Yes, Julie, I've been up to no good.
Good for you. Is there anyone from
Excuse me. I don't mean to interrupt you, Julie, but I have a person here that would like to join in with us. She is visiting me for a little while,
I'm one of your clients.
and she's one that I help every once in a while. Her name is,
My name is Dominique. I go by Nikki.
for the record.
For the record.
Thank you.
okay? Margaret, you reminded me. Is there anybody here from the school district would like to speak to this agenda item?
This is Margaret Marcucci for the record. I did, Julie. I mean, I think it's great.
Okay. Because John said there may be, yeah, I guess. But I guess not. I guess
I
not.
think that's me, Leanne Hill, Elko County School District. Yes, I anything we can use out there. We have yet started the Nevada trip, but would love to work with students utilizing any information. I do not have an actual copy of it, but I have seen it, so.
Great.
This is Margaret Marcucci for the record. I knew she was coming. Dawn knew she was coming, but yes, we want to get it out there. It's not just Elko County, it's Lander County and Eureka County that also asked for information on the Youth Action Council.
Terrific. I'm gonna ask that you go through Dawn to figure out the logistics. Did we?
We still need to take a vote, I believe.
That's what I thought. Any more discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I
Any against? Motion passes. Now we're on number 8. Discussion of the status on the matter as a 501c3. Yay! And next section is anticipated for the council. Dawn.
Yes, this is Dawn Lyons. Yeah, I know we're all really excited about our new status and our new opportunities that are open to us because of our status. You know, I have a lot of little things to keep up with now with taxes and all that stuff. And depending on how we decide to move forward, that could change as well. The nature of that could change. It's really kind of like an open discussion right now to see how you guys would like to see that develop within our council and how you imagine that to look for our future. Some ideas that I've thought of is that, you know, not only could we now apply for educational grants that we could, you know, participate with, but we could also now decide what we'd like to remove from the state fiscal authority and incorporate into our own contract. Any amount that we do, we have to consider the fact that if it's over a certain amount, we'll have to file different types of taxes and keep different kinds of tax records. But I mean, no matter what we decide on, and if we do that, trust me, I'm not an accountant. I have a master in public administration and I can do the accounting, but as far as the documents we would need for taxpayer purposes, we would have to hire an outside agent to do that. We could look into an agency that does all of it, like personnel and taxes and audit forms and all that stuff. If we decided to go with a larger amount of our grant or the whole thing to be awarded to us and for us to distribute it without the state's assistance. But and of course that doesn't get us out of the fact that we still have to follow state and federal laws and policies. So, we still have to follow all the rules, but it's a matter of, how quickly do we want to move in that direction and how quickly can we move in that direction. So, those are just some of the ideas that I've thought about, including staffing. You can utilize state staff, and the state is still responsible for the DSE is still responsible for the DSE assurances that they signed for in our state plan, and our grants. But so I mean, they would have to keep the records still, and they would still have to provide some kind of administrative staffing in order to do that. But as far as, my position, you could definitely take that outside of the state and create that position and manage that position outside of the state control if you wanted to. The suggestion that I would make is that you make it no sooner than the next spill, even though we have to do a spill amendment this time because of our budget. It's really a matter of moving the budget items legislatively as well. And so because we've already started that process with the state of legislative budget proposals, I would recommend we wait until the next legislative session after this one to incorporate those or to put those incorporated proposals into the legislative budget proposal. I hope that's making sense to you all, not clear as mud, but it is a lengthy process because it is state process and it's bureaucracy. So we can't get away from that. We're still a bureaucracy. We're federal council, and we're statewide. So we're required to utilize a designated state entity or DSE. So those are all things that have to stay in place because of our federal guidelines. Any thoughts, any suggestions, any hopes and wishes that you'd like to express as far as the our status goes and what you'd like to see us look like in a couple years?
I'd like to open this discussion to the general community, not just SILC members.
Julie, this is Dawn Lyons. We obviously would absolutely have to bring it to the community because anything that we write into our state plan for independent living or our spill, we have to have community input on. So, but as far as what we see it looking like, we'd like to propose. Is there any ideas from you guys?
That's not what that's not what
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. What'd you say?
I say if there's people here who's not on the council, I'd like to open it up to them.
Oh, you'd like to open the discussion up to anyone up in attendance?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I misunderstood that.
Because I know there's a lot of some non-members, who may have some interesting ideas.
Mark Tatter?
Like Mark, for instance.
Yeah, I have a comment if this is open to the general public. I don't think
Yes,
I'm on the agenda.
please.
I have some questions. I know that with nonprofits, there's a certain budget amount where you have a mandatory audit and things like that that are more involved. And also, requirements for board insurance and stuff like that. Is that all being accounted for? I don't know if Dawn, if you've had a chance to reach out to another Silk board in another state that maybe has already made that transition to nonprofit status, and that those things are being accounted for already. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Dawn Lyons. Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks for those questions. Now, I haven't actually compared numbers and or gotten quotes yet, but I have taken those things into consideration. And there is one item that we're currently in negotiations about is INR funds or in innovation and expansion funds from Voc Rehab, because without outside federal dollar, without funds that are not Part B funds, we can't pay payroll taxes because we're not allowed to use our federal Part B funds for payroll taxes. But I know that we can use I&E funds for that. So something that I've been in discussion with Voc Rehab about, but we haven't come to any conclusions yet. So that may impact our ability to have outside personnel. But as that's the only thing right now that I can think of that would be prohibitive for us, as far as being independent, because right now with our infrastructure that we pay aging and disability for, I can see our own infrastructure costing somewhat equivalent and possibly less than what we pay the state for our state infrastructure. Just because we absolutely have no choice at this point, utilizing state staff and utilizing state services. So they kind of dictate what those are for us, like rent and IT and all that stuff. So I don't have the numbers crunched yet. I can do some of that and bring it back to the next meeting. But as far as I can estimate, I do think it would save us a little bit of money in the long run if we can get
Yeah.
some outside funding like INE.
Yeah, they don't always fund all the stuff you need to have funded. The other one is the letter of determination. Has that been received from the IRS? And then do you have a registered agent lined up, or is that something you would do internally for
So
the
this is
filings?
this is Dawn Lyons. By a registered agent, are you talking about someone who could help us with our taxes and accounting and that stuff?
No, it's just a representative that's responsible for passing on state information that would be sent to the thing. A lot of nonprofits have it, and like a board chair might do it, an executive director might be the person, but the bigger the organization, sometimes people hire attorneys or law firms to be that
Right.
person. They're
No,
just a person who can get like an address that'll be sent to them. It's a formality, but it is something the state business Secretary of State's office will ask you for.
right. So this is Dawn Lyons. Yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from now. Actually, in order to apply, I had to be the representative myself. So I am that representative right now. This could choose
Yeah.
to change that in the long run. But so far so good because we have received our approval letter.
Excellent. Congratulations. That's great. I know this was a goal we were talking about 10 years ago when I was on the Silk board, and it's great to see it's finally happening.
It's been a learning curve, Mark, but yeah,
I bet.
yeah, I'm pretty happy with our progress. So
I, I'd like to call on Stephen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the indulgence. So the question I would have would be, of course, now I would say, I guess the other piece would be, how would we handle, not necessarily payroll taxes, but all the other pieces that come into play, as Mark's referring to, board of directors, all that kind of stuff, and kind of separation of duties. And it's not any particular person. It's just kind of structurally, it kind of makes nonprofits kind of flow a little bit better and reduces the challenges that may come with it. Um, and then I'll have to think of the other piece. I'm sure I'll think of it as say mute.
Okay, yeah, this is Dawn Lyons. Thanks for that question, Stephen. It's an important one because it is something that the SILC needs to consider. My ideas range from, I could continue doing this the way we've been doing it, or SILC officers could take on more responsibilities and perhaps even receive a stipend from the SILC for those services, depending on, how much work that is. And we could compare with other SILCs in other states and see how that looks for them, and maybe take some ideas off of theirs in that regard. But yeah, I would actually really like to see the officers be involved more and receive some kind of compensation for their work in that regard. And, as far as any outside contracting, I would also like to see the SILC do more of their own contracting like that with outside contractors and service providers, rather than having to go through the state master service agreements and state processes. So that's something that would have to be developed, is contract language and all that. And I could, I've done a little bit of legal documents before in the past. I've created some disclaimers and things like that, but I haven't created anything that big as like a contract. I could utilize a lot of the state contract language because I do have examples from the state. Or I could ask other silks for their contract language and kind of, incorporate some of their ideas into what, I could come up with a draft. Maybe even we could use the DAG to analyze it to help us determine if that's a valid contract language once I do a draft, if you want. Those are all things that I think would save us some money in the long run, so we don't have to outsource that. But I do expect the silk to make those determinations and decisions as we move forward as to what they'd like to see, as far as that goes. Would you like the silk officers to be more involved in the silk processes? For instance, the secretary taking minutes and the treasurer keeping track of fiscal with the executive director a little bit more hands-on, those kinds of things.
Madam Chair, I remembered what I was had initially, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. So Dawn was mentioning of aligning the potential transition with the next bill. So my question was going to be initially of how much would it have to align with the biennia, and kind of what are we talking about in terms of the need for IFC to transition things out?
So this is Dawn Lyons for the record. A good question again, Stephen. It actually aligns perfectly with the next biennium after this one, because this one's coming up next year and we have 2 years left of this current spill even after we amend it. So the next spill would be in alignment with the next legislative session. So we could write it in and then cross our fingers and hope that the state approves it in time for us to start our spill like we did last time, and then amend it if they did not approve it.
If I might, just so say there's more than $350,000 that needs to be adjusted to to make the silk more independent from the state. That's going to require IFC, if my memory is correct. So kind of how, I'm trying to explain it the best I can. See what I'm trying to say?
Actually, it doesn't take IFC because it's not an outside grant coming in. It would be a grant to us from Aging and Disability Services or whoever our designated state entity is at that time. So it's kind of like how we contract right now with outside partners with the CILs. And when they win a sub award from us, or when we award them something, the state actually does that contract with them, and they provide that sub award. But in essence, we would be receiving that sub award of all of our federal dollars from the state, and except for their 5% administrative that they're allowed to take, right? And we would be then having our own contracts from there and submitting for our reimbursements through the state in that way, if that's how we decided to do it.
Got it. That makes better sense. Trying to speed it up by another 2 years and 2 months. That makes sense.
Mhm.
Mary?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good to see everybody. Don, congratulations. That is a major step on getting the 501c3. My question is, you mentioned the innovation funds. Uh, do you have you started, or maybe the SILC could help you with this, because a backup plan? What happens if the innovation funds don't come through? What happens if the state funds don't come through? From experience, it's a wonderful idea to uh, sub um, subcontract your accounting, subcontract your personnel, your banking, your financial. But I can tell you from working with the policies and procedures as they're established through the administration and through the Rehab Act, we have a lot of things that we have to follow and we have to keep in mind. So it's not that easy to hire someone to do everything. You really have to stay on top of it. And then you were so right. And then if you, at this point, um, there's a little ways to go, but if you reach a million or over, then your audits, it's almost like you're having two audits done, and they're pretty intense. But that's beside the point because they're expensive. They're very expensive. So if you can, I would start just explaining to people, but that you would like to get a ballpark idea what those services would cost, because um, they are available, but you do have to align them to your policies, your procedures, your CFRs. So it takes a little bit of effort to get them going so that you're aligned and you're in compliance with everything. And then the backup plan would be for the SILC, and let us know how we can help you, because it's expensive. Bottom line, it's just expensive. I think with our CILs, we do so wish we could take the majority of our funds and put it into direct service staff, but we do end up paying a lot for just the ancillary that it takes to run a company. IT is another one. The prices are skyrocketing. Anyway, but please be sure and reach out when you get to those crossroads, because maybe we can help you. And congratulations again. And welcome to our world.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not very good at remembering specific numbers and dates and things like that because of my disabilities, but I do have some documents that I've gotten from other SILCs in different states that are 501c3s as examples of, what it's, for instance, what it costs them for all their overhead. And I can share those numbers with you at the next SILC meeting. I didn't know that that was something that you would necessarily want to see today. I probably should have included it, but I will do that for the next meeting, so that you guys have an idea of what other SILCs are paying. And it's not necessarily what it would look like for us right now either. So I can also look into a couple different organizations that might be able to provide some of those services and see what they would charge us, to bring that back at the next meeting as well, if that's something that you guys are interested in hearing about. It is, right?
Uh, for the record, this is Mary Evilsizer again. I think, Don, for your benefit and for the budget's benefit, I think as a SILC, we don't necessarily have to see those numbers, but to help you along the way, to start getting a feel. Because if you have a SILC that is in Arkansas, and then we're Nevada, so maybe the budgets are comparable. It's just the ancillary services are um, high. And then I think for our silk, especially because you're moving forward with 501c3, yay, 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 after 30 years. But so the next step is plan A and plan B. Always have, what is it? A safety net, a safety net.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for the information that Wisconsin sent me because they sent me the name of an organization. There's other organizations like that that kind of bundle those services together. And that might be our best bet if we were to go in that direction. So I have been looking into it, Mary. I just wanted you to know I've been looking at it, and I'd plan on continuing to look into our options. I just wanted to, in this agenda item, get input from the silk itself, as far because I don't necessarily want to do a bunch of research on something that the silk is totally opposed to, if that makes sense. So I wanted to make sure that I was on the right track, what the silk wants from me, what I should continue to look into. If the silk wants me to share any of that information at the next meeting, I would like to hear what exactly you guys want to hear from me at the next meeting about this. If you want specifics, if you want quotes, if you want to know just the progress that I've made as far as, looking at outside funding besides Part B. I can share all that with you guys. I planned on doing that anyway and keeping you abreast of what's going on as I go anyway. But I do want to make sure that as I'm moving forward, that the silk is actually guiding me in the direction that they want me to go in.
Oh, it's the last minute. Going to have a shower.
What? Oh yeah, you said that. Something.
But Stephen, if you're, would you please mute yourself if you're not participating?
Verizon. She was next door with her husband.
Okay.
Stephen?
Do you make a chocolate for?
I'll just mute him. Okay. So anyone else have any ideas of what they'd like to hear at the next meeting as far as any updates, or want me to look into anything, any ideas that I haven't brought up that you guys could think of that you'd like me to take a look at? Or
This is Linda Vejvoda for the record. I would like to know the progress. I mean, it just tells me that we're doing more even outside the box of just silk itself. So I think what I'd like to see is the numbers of what the silk there is going to be attending with, and what count. I know it's probably a pretty big county, but I don't know Nevada that well. But and I'd like to know where you're going to over.
Where I'm going to over what? You'd muted yourself.
My bad. Having problems. I would like to see if you are going to be overlapping too with the other 501(c)(3)s, just in case there's areas that aren't being met, where they're going to be met. Because I know that Las Vegas is a large territory and the community there is very large. And just knowing that you already got it pretty much in the bag, I'd like to see those areas where that's going to be more prominent in, and the numbers of the community that you're going to be serving.
Thanks, Linda. This is Dawn Lyon. So I'm glad you brought that up because it is on our agenda next, in the next agenda item, I should say, for us to discuss something related to that. And it is a good idea to have a better picture, a clearer picture of the needs, and have a good needs assessment done regarding gaps in services and things like that for Nevada before we decide how to move forward with our own structure, right? Because it'll have a lot to do with how we are contracting our Part B money out too. So I see where you're going with that, and I like it. And I don't know if we want to continue with this discussion or move right into the next one so we can discuss that. But I want to make sure no one else has any other questions or thoughts.
There's a comment in the chat. Could you read it?
This is Sheena Childers for the record. Would you like me to read it, Julie?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I put it in the chat. As the voice of Voc Rehab here today, we are committed to supporting the SILC with the provision of innovation and expansion funds. And we are excited to work with Dawn on how the INE funds from VR would be used for that purpose. So thanks for the discussion. I'll be sure to share with Drazen a little bit about what was discussed here today.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to call out Steven and then we're going to.
Thank you. Appreciate the second indulgence. So the question would be kind of going off of Mary a little bit. Are there enough resources in the areas that have been discussed, accounting and all of that, that have specialization in disabilities to ensure, it's one thing to have, a Westlaw set, for example, for a lawyer's office, but it's another to kind of understand what you're up against, if that makes sense.
This is Dawn Lyons. I think I get what you're saying, Stephen. I have a pretty good idea of what our options are as far as what we would have to do if we were in charge of our own personnel and our own once you hit our own personnel, you've got a whole, like Mary said, a whole mixed bag of services that we need to pay for, right? So but with Voc Rehab being interested in working with us on innovation and expansion funding, that's a possibility that's not off the table, right? So it's something that we could definitely talk about and try to work towards, and start planning for if that's what we want to do. um does that cover what you were asking?
Kind of, sort of. It's kind of like I said, more so of if there's need externally, say for an audit or something along those lines. I don't know what the budget numbers look like. I'm assuming that's agendized today, as it typically is. But if it meets that audit threshold, um, similar to how, I don't know if the SILC's ever been subject to a state audit, the auditors have to understand the program first before they audit it, it if that makes better sense.
I think so. So, like Mary said, if we reached over $1 million in revenue, then we would have the audit requirement. Right now, our federal Part B money is less than 400,000 a year. I can't imagine that we would receive enough outside funding to put us over that $1 million threshold anytime soon.
Okay.
But I do understand that it would be an additional expense if we needed that audit done. And that wouldn't be a big deal because we would already have an accountant in place and that would have the capacity to do that if we needed to.
Sure. That makes better sense.
Okay.
Pause this question on this topic. And John, would you like to take the next one?
Actually, Julie, can I suggest we take a 10-minute break right now?
That's a fabulous idea. Let's do it. So, be back at 2:10. I'm going. We are now line number 9. Good.
Okay.
I'm losing my voice.
Okay. I'll read it. It's the discussion regarding planning this bill work group to consider necessary amendments. Um, there's some amendments that I actually it kind of overlaps with our budget review that I'd like to include in this agenda item before we talk about when we'd like to create or schedule our next spill work group and who to invite and involve and all that stuff. Um, I posted what I did was I posted our budget with the reflection of what the state shows our budget to be at this time based on our because our original budget that we had planned for this year and next, our legislative ask was not approved. So we did not get state funding for our personnel like we had hoped. So this is how when I posted this budget for the draft anyway for fiscal year 26 and 27, it shows how the state has us budgeted. And not how we necessarily wanted our budget or what's in our spill, but it does kind of reflect our spill. It's just, this is how the state has it. So we need to kind of look at that and decide how we want to inform the spill work group moving forward as far as what we definitely need to move around on our budget or where we'd like to see that budget go. So one of the things that I wanted to mention, if you looked at the budget draft, was that the personnel costs aren't exact. They're without fringe. I don't have those numbers. The state, I just included the amounts that the state gave us, and I put more into the executive director category because we currently have an AA position that's vacant. So I just put the leftover funding in that category that I didn't see the state having to utilize for the executive director position. One thing about that I'd like to say is that the disability innovation funds from the Department of Education near the bottom of that budget, I did not deduct that from the top portion of the budget that is set in place by the state already for salaries. We can deduct that from my salary because that's what we can apply it to. So then we'll have those additional funds that we can move down into another category. So obviously it's going to go over the 30% of our grant just because of overhead, the rent that we pay, the infrastructure that we pay, the 5% admin that we pay to aging and disability services along with our salaries. And just so you understand, I am topped out in my category for the state classification that I'm in. So it's not like I'm trying to take a bunch of money from the SILC. That's just my salary. It's how it works. But I did also include a document that shows what the average executive director salaries are in Nevada and in Las Vegas, just so you know, it's kind of right along those lines anyway. But I'm not opposed to negotiating that. And I do think that it's necessary to ask for the state to provide us with that funding in the future, since they were in agreement with it last time. It just didn't go all the way through the governor's office, that's all. So we do plan on asking for that again. This time we are not asking for a program officer position for the youth outreach specialist because state HR decided that the AA3 position was sufficient in order to cover those duties and that it wasn't outside the scope of that position to do that. So, but we are asking for the AA position to be fully funded by the state as well. So that won't happen until we can create this new state plan amendment with that in mind, that this year and next year, we won't have that state funding. So we're going to have to make other arrangements move things around and, be a little creative with our funding this time. And if we do go over that 30%, it's not that big of a deal. I just have to put in justification in our state plan amendment. That's all. But I was thinking that it would be wise because, and some of our agenda items kind of merge into each other here. So I hope you'll just bear with me. But the Centers for Independent Living and I had a discussion about, what kind of data we already have, which isn't much, and it wasn't very statistically significant. I think we got 22 responses on our consumer satisfaction survey over the last year, which is terrible considering we've gotten over 100 in the past, and I'm not sure why the difference other than I did not do any physical outreach to the rural areas myself. And when I do that, I tend to assist people in completing their surveys on the spot, and I didn't do that this time. So I think that's one factor that helps us gain more responses in our consumer satisfaction surveys. But I mean, even 119, I think, is the best that we've ever done in 1 year. Even that's not fantastic as far as responses go. And it doesn't tell us, it doesn't paint a very complete picture of what our needs are across the state. And so I know the Centers for Independent Living suggested that we do a gaps assessment. And I asked the Gwynn Center, who does a very professional job at that. And they've done this in the past for the Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities. And I've looked at those reports and they're just amazing. And they could actually help us to advocate for the needs and the gaps in services and this funding for it through legislators and policymakers if we allow them to do this professionally for us. Of course, I'm willing to help in any way I can, and I've discussed this with them, and I've asked them for a quote. They haven't given us a formal quote, but they did say that the DD councils was 150,000. I know that's a lot of money, but I was looking at our budget, and I think we could actually pull it off, but we'd have to sacrifice in some other areas, of course. We would not be able to hire an AA over the next couple of years. We would be able to move that money down into a contract though. So it would probably help us in meet that, not be over that 30% threshold, or at least be closer to it, so that we don't have to provide justification. Not that that matters too much, but we could move that money. We also have the Disability Innovation Fund grant that we could apply to my salary. So we could move some of that down as well into that contract. There's some of the community chest money is set aside for emergency funding at 20,000. We could move that out into, we could just not award that to community chest and utilize that for part of the contract for the Gwynn Center to do their needs and gaps assessment for us. And there's a legislative educator position that we provide 54,000 for, that we could reduce that amount, and we could also reduce the amount that we provide for the independent living program. For John, we have 30,000 budgeted. We could take that down to 5,000 and utilize the rest of it, the 25,000, towards a needs gaps assessment. So if we did all that, it does come up to about 75,000. And if we put our contract into a 2-year contract, and we did 75,000 in each year, we could technically get that gaps assessment done at the 150,000 if that's indeed what they quote us. But I need to hear some feedback from you guys, because I know that's a huge deal. But I think in the long run, it's going to help us even get more money from our state and from our partners, and so that they really understand, and so that we also really understand what the needs are in our community and if we're meeting them and what we need in order to do that. So let's hear what you guys think.
This is Dee Dee Formaster for the record. I think it's absolutely and totally outrageous what they're charging. And do I think we need to look around? Hell yes.
Okay. Margaret.
I know it is expensive because I'm on the DD council and I saw that price. But yeah, it's expensive, but my counterpart, Leanne, jumped off We talked about the assessment that we need to do in Elko County. I've talked to Lander, and we need to do something because we're forgotten. We're forgotten out here. And I do what I can do. And that's about it. If I remember right, Don, you said most of them came from me. Yeah, because I made my people when they did it, they had to do it right there with me and handed it to me. And it's like everything else. We're trying to get the stuff, the transition ones. I have the school district, and we're working on getting those too. But yes, it's expensive, but if it helps us, so be it.
Mary,
Thank you, Julie. For the record, this is Mary Eagle Sizer. Thank you for letting me speak towards this subject. We did meet with Dawn, and the needs assessment is important, and I think we all decided that. And then, Margaret, we know what you're talking about when you say you're forgotten out there. I we think the disability community is forgotten as a whole. That's how we feel. Essentially, we have more demands than we have resources to dedicate to helping individuals become more empowered and more independent. So that's critical in and of itself. And I think this data will be able to demonstrate to everyone how underfunded we are right now, how underfunded we continue to be. So I think this, while it may be expensive, I do believe it's the way to go. We are blessed, though, that we have two centers for independent living that are certified and approved by ACL. That's a blessing. So we have that. We've had that for, gosh, over 30 years. But the federal government has not been able to keep up with inflation, to keep up with the population growth that we have here in Nevada. Our state, to be honest, has never been supportive, and I'm not complaining. Our state has gone through some hard times. We know that if we had more funds, for example, at our center, if I had funds to pay more of the overhead, and if I could double my team members, we could serve that many more individuals without any problem. So anyway, it's expensive, Dee Dee, I understand. It sounds like a lot of money, but I think what we're looking for is a long-term solution for the expansion of services, because we have two centers and that are funded, and those centers are underfunded. And so we need to look at who are we really missing? We always say we should find the underserved. Everybody's underserved in Nevada. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for the opportunity to provide input.
thank you, Randall.
Yeah, hi, it's Randall Owen for the record. Don, when you talked with the Gun Center, did you give them like any kind of scope of work or anything? Um, I'll explain why I ask you in a minute.
Yeah, so this is Don Lyons. Only the vague description based on what the Centers for Independent Living and Rural Center for Independent Living and I discussed, which was a statewide gaps assessment with a focus on Elko and Pahrump is what we've determined that those are the two areas where we have little to no data on, that we have
Okay.
heard feedback about, that we would really like something to back up our narratives on.
Okay. So I mean, I'm at UNR and the Gwynn Center is here, so we have to be well, we are partners in a lot of ways. Um, so they did that assessment for the DD Council on Housing, and I was one of the ones on the council, and I know we're recorded, but I also said this when they were there in the meetings, like I don't think they did a good job of actually talking to people with disabilities. They did a lot of grand like literature review and they looked at a lot of numbers and stuff, but and to actually get them to take the account of people with disabilities and incorporate that in was a lot of work. And like the first couple of initial drafts really did not talk about rights to housing and rights to access at all. And it took quite a lot of work to work that into what their final product was. So, like, I like the people at the Gwyn Center, but I think they need to be educated about the value of voices of people with disabilities and if they're gonna perform analysis kind of like directly impacting that, um, they're gonna need some very clear directions.
Yeah, thank you, Randall. This is Dawn Lyons. Actually, we did discuss that quite a bit. I didn't know that that they didn't do a great job with that before, but I did mention the importance and how our experience as a silk, when I've done um physical rural outreach and help people fill out our consumer survey, and how much better of a response we got. And just the fact that, I'm willing to help as a silk staff member with anything that we can partner on with them as far as what kind of data we're collecting and how we should collect that. I mentioned that specifically, so I would definitely be involved in that as well. And the silk could guide me. If you have specific ideas, you could inform me so that I could make sure I bring that into our conversations. So I think they're willing to work with me in that regard, and they were actually kind of relieved that I was willing to be a partner in the footwork, so to speak, because we
Yeah,
do
I
attend a
think
lot
that
of events.
the key to working with them is just describing the scope of work well and like saying who has to be included in whatever their analysis is. It can't be done from a desk. They have to get out there and talk to people.
Yeah, and as soon as we get a full scope of work written out that they're proposing, as soon as they have some kind of a quote that they can send me as far as what they're proposing, I will definitely share it with the Silk. We've just had preliminary conversations. So, and that's basically what the example that they sent me was. So I know it's going to be in that ballpark, is what I'm saying. I don't know if it's going to be exact or if that's, if they're going to estimate a different amount based on what our needs are that might be different from what they've done with the DD Council. But obviously this isn't a final determination. I wanted to make sure that we were looking at this and making sure that this is where the direction we want to go in so that I can make sure that our spill work group has that draft budget to start working with that the spill wants to see. You know what I mean? And we'd have to move that money around in order to do that. Linda?
I just wanted to be called on. This is Linda Vavoda for the record. When we were doing the satisfaction surveys through Prump and Elko and the lower rural areas, and I think Dee Dee can vouch for this too. A lot of people, because they have been doing it so much on their own, they looked at us like, I don't have a disability, there's nothing wrong with me. But you could clearly see that they did have a disability. And it's not only just education, but I feel that the satisfaction surveys that we have out there point blankly ask them, do you have a disability? And it I think it makes them embarrassed to even say that they have a disability. I know it took me a little bit to understand I have a disability. I've had a disability, and it took Dee Dee to point it out to me. Thank you, Dee Dee, by the way. And but I never considered myself disabled, even though I had replacement knees, I had different things going on, trauma, stuff like that. Um, so some people, they just need to be educated more, like Randall said. Although I don't know how you're going to educate those that are out in the rural area that it's necessary for them to share and be involved in knowing what independent living is about and how we can help.
This is Dawn Lyons, Linda, and although I totally understand where you're coming from and what you're saying, that is actually a totally different issue that we should address as far as, educating the public and letting them know about independent living and what that means. That's even though it does affect this type of a study, I don't think there's anything we can do necessarily in that regard, unless you want to have a separate study done for that or a separate work effort done for that in our next spill. We could definitely incorporate more education. We just have to look at how much that would cost and how we want to approach that. But I hope that makes sense.
What I'd like to do, the focus of this conversation is, should we consider putting funds aside to do a study? The details we can work on later. We're just asking the general question. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Julie. Yeah, it's really just, should we do this? Should we approach it this way? And should we guide the spill work group to be focusing on making sure that our budget reflects a study that we want done? And Dee Dee, that doesn't mean I can't get a quote from someone else, but we definitely want someone who's qualified. So that, we are limited with our choices in that regard. And I don't necessarily think that they're not competitive with their prices when it comes down to quality of work, but I could be wrong and I will research more. I see you do have your hand up though. So would you like to say something else?
Yes, I do want to say something else. Number one, our Health and Human Resources offices, as well as Nevada Rural Housing, have a section where you can fill it out if you have a disability. And the thing that, there's several ways to collect data. I think before we do anything, we need to do some legwork ourselves. For instance, in certain counties, like, I'm in Carson, Douglas, Lyon, and Story counties, and also up at the lake, I can easily go in and ask for statistics, or you might even be able to get it online on, how many disabled people they are serving. So we can get some kind of idea.
Dee Dee?
And I think that a lot of us who work in these counties really know what the needs are. And I realize that it's not a statistical data that you can give to the legislature, which is probably eventually what we need, but we need to find the funding somewhere. We are not a big enough agency to come up with that kind of money. That's a lot of money.
Dee Dee, this is Dawn Lyons. In response to that, I have mentioned in the past that I have collected all kinds of needs assessments. When I worked with the Commission on Services for Persons with Disabilities, we did extremely difficult legwork trying to get more data collected. Talked to the Department of Data Analytics, and they said they didn't have the manpower to do it because there's just not enough data being collected on the needs of people with disabilities in Nevada. Now, I've used the New Hampshire Disability Compendium statistics reports. I have used the Department of Education reports. I've used the GMAC needs assessments reports. I have scoured different areas to pull in statistics and numbers and data on needs assessments in Nevada in different aspects, because there is no generalized needs or gaps assessments that has ever been done in this state. Not that I can find. And I've mentioned those also to the Gwynn Center, and of course they were thrilled to hear my suggestions. Oh, and I've also used the census information. I pretty much anywhere you can think of, I have looked to try and glean a larger picture, a more accurate picture of what the needs are in Nevada, but they're without doing an actual statistical meta-analysis on all of those. And even if we did, I'm not sure that we could come up with an accurate picture without doing additional footwork and hiring someone outside of our organization that has the resources to do that, to assist us with that. I just don't, I mean, unless you guys are expert report makers, and I would have the commitment of all of the SILC members to do the footwork on that and assist me with it. I just don't see that I could do more than I've already done. Randall.
So, the Duty Council does do a, needs assessment every 5 years to support their plan. My center also does a needs assessment. I think Stephen probably knows a lot more, but the council one is almost done. But I need to do mine again in the next year and a half. So I wonder if we somehow get them to do an overall needs assessment in the state, and it could be a partnership between the Nevada Center for Excellence of Disabilities and the SILC, and be able to answer both of our questions. And then that would also reduce the cost for each of us, because a lot of the work would be extremely overlapping.
That's very possible, Randall. Like I said, their scope of work has not been completed yet, and their quote hasn't been submitted. So if we were to suggest that each of our entities provide our own needs assessments to them to include or be incorporated, that would be a great idea. And I think that it could potentially save us some money. The SILC does our needs assessment too, our consumer satisfaction survey. We collect our data for our state plan as well, just like the DD Council. Sometimes we have better responses than others, like I was saying. I also want to mention that this isn't just a needs assessment that we're asking for. And although that's a big part of it, because we do need to understand what the needs are, it's a gaps assessment as well. So where are the gaps in services? And that's important to understand for the SILC in order to write our spill, because we need to understand where the services are lacking and why, and who could potentially cover that. And if we need a memorandum of understanding between a couple centers in order to accomplish those goals, or if we need to request more funding from legislature in order to cover those areas because we don't have enough funding to cover them from the federal government. You know what I mean? Those are the types of things that we need to understand better, especially in the areas that I mentioned, because we need to understand if there is a gap, if they are underserved in those areas because of the locations and because of how hard it is to get to them, say from Sparks, where Northern Nevada Center for Independent Living is, or even, you know, Southern Nevada Center for Independent Living, who really is only funded for Clark County, but offers to help sometimes in Pahrump because it's so close. But, you know, we don't know if what that looks like necessarily unless we have a gaps assessment done. And that would be a huge part of the results that we need to see, I think, in order to write a meaningful spill and put our money where our mouth is, so to speak. Margaret?
Sorry, I was on the phone with someone in Elko, and she said not only do we need Elko County, you're doing Elko County, you have to do Carlin, Owyhee, Wells, Mountain City. You've got all independent. You've got 15 school districts, 15 different schools that are like 2 or 3 people and in the area to do all the needs assessment, not just Elko. And I think I could round up, I have enough people I can round up to do something like that. Trust me. I just have to just pull out favors.
Well, and I'm not designing the study, right? So if the Gwynn Center were to come up with a proposal, they're brainstorming a way to define how that study would look. And we can determine after we see that, you know, if that's how we envisioned it and exactly what we're looking for. And and I'm not saying, I've definitely told them that we need a statewide needs assessment, but we also need gaps in services assessment. And that I said we would like a focus on Elko and Pahrump, but we really do need the statewide information and data. And so like I said, I mean, I used to work in, I used to be in a program, an education program that I was doing research and studies and stuff. And I don't even know what that should look like, to be honest with you. I don't know if I'm necessarily on top of being able to design a study like that. So I'm curious to see what they come up with.
And not just Elko, but Lander County too. I mean, all the counties, because there are so many outreach places that you guys don't know about, but I do because I've lived here for many, many, many years, and people just don't know about them.
Well, and as much as I agree with you, and that, like I said, the needs assessment needs to be a statewide assessment, and with statewide data, maybe perhaps the focus on the gaps should be focused on those areas that we know of, like Elko and Pahrump, so that we can keep our costs down for now and at least approach it that way.
Right.
Steve has had his hand up for a while.
Yeah.
Thanks. Real quick, would SEI's Olmsted plan, kind of, would that give us some data to start with and or a comparable bid to look at? Not that Gwynn is not great, but I'm just saying, you know, this is pretty much all that SEI does, from my understanding. Social Entrepreneurs, I forget what their name is, the one that did the plan. You know, like I said, I think that this is really all they do. So kind of just something to keep in mind.
Thank you, Stephen. This is Dawn Lyons. I'll also ask them if that's something they could do for us and see what they can quote us as well, and what kind of study they could design based on what our needs are.
This is Dee Dee, Formaster for the record. I'm very aware that this drastically needs to be done. I mean, Sandy told me 5 years ago that she could not believe that there was no data on the disability community. So I agree it needs to be done, but I don't agree that we should have to incur all the cost. I think we should be able to maybe collaborate with other agencies and lower the cost, like what was brought up. That would be great. But it's important that it gets done, and I'm very much aware of that. It's just the cost is something that really an agency as small as ours really can't, afford to do.
Before we call on someone else, I just want to mention real quick, this is Dawn Lyons, sorry. I just want to mention real quick, I don't recall what it was several years ago that the SILC got a quote on from social entrepreneurs to do an assessment for us on. But when we got their quote, it was around that same ballpark figure. So I just want to say, I don't think it's an out necessarily, maybe it's an outrageous amount, but I don't necessarily think that it's outside of the range of what's expected from other entities as well. Okay,
Well,
just say that.
well, I sent you a message.
You sent a message.
Yeah. Okay.
Randall's had his hand up for a little while.
Randall.
I mean, yeah, I think getting back to Julie's clarifying question earlier, just like I think we're all in agreement that like this work needs to be done. So, I mean, if you need a motion for that to move forward out like that, I can do that. But I I am concerned that I think for this amount of money for this organization, like we kind of need to go out to bid and see what other people can do for it. So Stephen mentioned SEI, like that's a good option. There's some other centers on the UNR campus that could do it as well. I'm sure there's some on the UNLV campus that would do it. I I think before we move forward, we just see what the options are. And I'll just comment on the $150,000. Like, I don't think it's absurd, actually. um, if my center was doing this kind of work, it would be about that. Um, and unfortunately, when you work at a university like Gwynn Center or I am, like, costs are just higher. Like, you're getting people with PhDs, and then you gotta pay some overhead, and you gotta pay, research assistants to go out there and do it. So the $150,000 does not surprise me.
Yeah, thanks, Randall. I definitely am interested in getting quotes from other entities. So if you can think of other entities besides SEI, would you just shoot me a quick email on those and let me know what they are if you can brainstorm them. If anyone else has any ideas, I'm open for suggestions and I'm willing to
If I
do
can do
whatever.
that.
Thank you. Also, after Mary, I would like to kind of wrap this up, just to know if this is something, do we need to get the quotes? Do we need to know if this is an accurate ballpark, or can we decide on whether or not this is something we should ensure that we're budgeting for in our spill work group?
Great. I think that this is Linda Voivoda. I know Mary, just give me a second. You can have the floor, but I think that we should go ahead and wrap this up, put it on the bench and come back to it because we have not went through a lot of our agenda items. And I'm going to give it back to Mary.
Julie, for the record, this is Mary Wilsizer. Linda, thank you for the floor. I just wanted to echo that I really think this is a big step for Nevada to finally have, if we can, and I know we're looking at the funds, but I know we'll do the right thing. And I'm very encouraged. Randall, I want to thank you when you said, how about if we combine our surveys? There might be other groups out there too that we could partner with to get the data that we need, because this data will not just serve the SILC, it will serve the whole disability community throughout the state of Nevada. And then it would be our hope, Dawn, that eventually we would be able to come up with, you know, a larger expansion of CIL services throughout the state, regardless of what form that takes, because that's what's necessary, and that is what we need. And then with the population expansion, we can't ever expect the federal government to keep up with the population. It's almost like the universe is saying it's time for Nevada to step up, really take a look. Where are those population gaps? Where are the veterans? Where are the children? Where are the seniors? Where are individuals of all disabilities? Because again, all disabilities are being underserved. And so I agree completely and wholeheartedly. And I also know as a council and as a state, we'll get the best price. We always were frugal in that way. So I just want to say that I'm in full commitment to this research. And then let's use the data. Let's use the research, but not only with the state, but with the federal government, with the county, to make sure that the individuals that need services in our community are getting them. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. This is Dawn Lyons. Just as you guys were talking, you know, I thought I can also look into getting an a true statistical analysis company to do a meta-analysis of all of the needs assessments that we can provide for them. And, you know, that could be a separate cost. And then we would only need the gaps assessment done by the Gwynn Center or whoever else we get a quote from that quotes us the best price and with the best service. That's another option too that I could look into. But as far as I just want to wrap this up by asking for I guess I'm looking for a motion that we move forward with a budget revision that reflects some kind of an assessment with it and needs and gaps assessment within our budget over the next bill amendment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second
that motion.
Thank you. And I know Julie's getting a little bit tired. Julie, do you care if I go ahead and manage the vote? Or do you want to do the vote?
All in favor? Say aye.
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 Any against? Motion guys. Okay. Now we're gonna public comment. Dawn, will you read the preamble?
Sure. So no action may be taken upon a matter raised under the comment period unless the matter itself has been specifically included on an agenda as an action item. To provide public comment telephonically, dial 1-253-215-8782. When prompted to provide the meeting ID, enter 929-904-1434 and passcode 707401. Comments will be allowed at the beginning and end of each day and will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Persons making comments will be asked to begin by stating their name for the record and to spell their last name and provide the secretary with written comments.
Any questions? I don't see any hands. Do you?
I do not. Just one little comment here, just so people are aware of what we're doing. We're just going to end the meeting a little bit early, and we'll approach the rest of the agenda items tomorrow when we reconvene at 1 p.m. That's all. I just wanted to mention that so everybody's confused.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Julie, do you want
I'd like to adjourn the meeting till tomorrow, and I will not be here, but Linda will be sharing the meeting.
Hey,
Yes, ma'am.
hey, tomorrow, Dee Dee needs to be on ASAP because the number 10 is one that they're talking about.
Are you talking to?
Yeah,
Okay.
that it was a little bit combined, but we can finish that one up tomorrow. Sorry, Dawn Lyons for the record.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
I have a question for you.
Thank you. Are we adjourning now?
Yeah, Julie did say we were adjourning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dawn, can you give me a call
Yes.
after this real quick?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.